much. But evidence of how the virus is affecting the life chances of young people is laid bare in BBC research today. A Freedom of Information request, the data come back from that shows the number of apprenticeships ending in redundancy during lockdown is 2/3 higher than in 2019. Between March and July, just over 1,000 people in England were withdrawn from apprenticeship programmes because they had been made redundant. This compares to 615 for the same period the year before. Ruth Chapman Hall worked as a nursery assistant apprentice, but was made redundant after being put on furlough during lockdown.
Going from a degree to an apprenticeship in a nursery, it was exciting and new. And then I only started for 2 months, and it was a shock and upsetting because I've only been there for 2 months. I haven't even got taught anything. I only just started learning stuff and then I've lost it. So it was very upsetting. They tried to be supportive about it, and they tried to be making sure that I'm okay and making sure that if I need any help, that it's there. I got some support from the learning centre that I did my course on, and I got a little sorry from the manager that I never met, and it was just a very nice experience. I applied again, and I was very, very lucky, and I've now found another whole career path that I didn't expect I would like, and I now work at a care home, and it's very the same as the nursery but very different. But again, it's a career path that I never thought I wanted, but I ended up getting a job at the end of it.
That is reassuring to hear from Ruth Chapman Hall, but the beginning of that round, losing her apprenticeship, it's very uncertain for a lot of people at the moment, that's for sure, regardless of what age you're in. Let's listen to what Tracy Matthews from Milton Keynes College has to say on this. She places young people in work. She says 20 of her 500 apprentices have been made redundant or placed at risk.
I worry not just about the apprentices that we have on programme now, I also worry about all those young people who wanted to get an apprenticeship, and we don't have as many apprenticeship vacancies in the system. And I worry for the apprenticeship brand, because for the last few years in school we have been trying to encourage young people to consider apprenticeships as a viable alternative. And actually now, for those people who have, maybe they're feeling that their fingers have been bitten.
Gillian Keegan is the Education Minister in charge of apprenticeships and skills. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us today. What do you say to the firms that are letting apprentices go?
Well, I mean, obviously there's a lot of uncertainty in our economy at the moment, and we do understand that. And it's a difficult time as a result of that. Although so far we are seeing fewer redundancies among apprentices than in the wider workforce. I think employers are very much trying to protect their apprentices as much as possible. But we do work with employers, and we've now got 1,000 employers actually who've also signed up for the redundancy support scheme. And they're there with opportunities to pick up people like Ruth who have been made redundant, to provide other opportunities for them. And there are 1,000 employers on the service right now offering opportunities for anyone redundant. So what we do is urge everybody to, it's quite a new service, not many people know about it, so we're trying to get out there as much as possible and telling people to call the number, which hopefully I can use your show to advertise as well, and they can find another opportunity, because there are still many opportunities. We've got 80,000 vacancies in the apprenticeship system right now.
But the problem is also those who are in them who've lost their jobs. So yes, I understand. So you want to tell people of that, and that is important. But it's not just about those who are losing; it's about the lack of creation of new ones at this time as well, isn't it?
Well, as I say, we have 80,000 vacancies on the site right now for apprenticeships. We've also just introduced, as of August, a £2,000 incentive for employers, which will pay if they take a young person in an apprenticeship. So that works in conjunction with the Kickstart scheme as well. So we do have that incentive, and it's quite new, that system, but we think from the early activity on the system that's creating a lot of interest as well. So people that highly value apprentices and apprenticeships, and they're seen as a brilliant way to work and to learn at the same time. And I think, as Tracy said, more and more companies are really valuing their apprenticeships. So I do believe that we'll still have a lot of apprenticeship opportunities.
But there are concerns. I mean, you just mentioned the Kickstart scheme there. It offers 6-month work placements in new jobs for 16 to 24-year-olds who are currently out of work, claiming universal credit and are at risk of long-term unemployment. But when we've talked about this with employers before, they've talked about the facts, and some of the criticisms of it already is that it's only a placement with no guarantee of work at the end of it. So you get the employers are incentivized to take you on at first, but not keep you.
Well, what we're doing right now is I'm working with my colleagues in DWP who run the Kickstart scheme to make sure that as we start the Kickstarts, and they'll probably be the first people will be starting those in around November, that as they go through their Kickstart, that we're there trying to encourage those employers to turn those into an apprenticeship, because that would be the best way for them then to take that opportunity and turn it into something real with a real job, but also with the training. As Ruth said, it's important to get the training as well, particularly if you're heading in a new direction or one that you perhaps haven't thought of.
But I suppose, the bigger backdrop of this is that people aren't able to stay in their regular jobs at the moment because there isn't the work. The businesses are not open. So in terms of thinking about apprenticeships and taking on new people and fostering those people into new roles at the beginning of their career, how are you going to make sure that those opportunities don't dry up?
I mean, you're absolutely right, Emma. Obviously, as you've got, the lockdown for some industries, like retail has always been quite a big employer of apprentices. Clearly, during the lockdown, it wasn't a great time for them to take an apprentice on because they weren't open. And of course, we're in that situation right now. So it has affected some sectors, and there have been some reductions in the number of apprenticeships they're offering, because clearly it's not a great time to take on somebody new if they can't take them into the premises as well. And that is definitely having an impact. However, we have seen, we did see then that pick up again. And, obviously we're working with lagging figures all the time, but we're hoping, that we can still encourage employers to prioritise apprenticeships. They do seem to be prioritising apprenticeships because, they like the model of apprenticeship. They like the fact that people come in and train and yet are working productively at the same time. It's a really good model, and actually it's a really good model to help us with our economic recovery, because people do get productive quite quickly on an apprenticeship.
So perhaps these are the reasons to still put your mind to that if you are in an industry, even if it's suffering at the moment. That's what you would be imploring them to do. But what would you say to young people who are listening, or their parents who are very concerned about their prospects at the moment? Perhaps they're going into worlds where apprenticeships are just not offered as part of the course. Because, I mean, how would you be feeling going into this at this stage if you were just trying to start out?
I actually was an apprentice.
Yes.
I was an apprentice, and I left school at 16 in the 80s, actually, when it was very, very high unemployment and very high youth unemployment. So I completely understand. We have, I think, first of all, apprenticeships. If you look at the apprenticeship system, there's now nearly 600 different types of careers. You can do everything from equine grooming to space engineering. And, we've got degree apprenticeships, we've got master's levels. There's all sorts of different levels of apprenticeships. And right now, as I say, 6,000 vacancies of really high quality apprenticeships, are there being advertised. So give apprenticeships a shot, go for a good high quality apprenticeship. Of course, there's uncertainty, but I believe that, of course, it's more difficult to get an opportunity when there's economic disruption. And the whole reason we've got all of those government schemes is to make sure that we really focus on youth employment, because it's always the first thing that is a worry when you've got any economic downturn. But the number to call if you're a redundant apprentice is 0800 015 0600. If you're even concerned that you may be made redundant, then set yourself up on that and see what opportunities are available. Or if you're thinking about an apprenticeship, go on apprenticeships.gov.uk, and again you can set up yourself and say, these are all the things I'm interested in, or just scroll through and see what's on offer, because most people will be amazed at how many opportunities there are and how many different exciting careers there are that you can do this road, you can do by an apprenticeship now.
You work into the Department for Education, and I have to say we had a couple of questions because we are talking about young people's prospects generally, and this is a theme that is coming up again and again and again. this is just coming from a listener, if I may put it to you, around their 20-year-old who hasn't gone back to uni, all online learning, no social life, no sport, can't see his girlfriend or friends, yet he's paying full price for tuition and rent for a house he isn't living in. No other generation would be treated so badly. The message continues, but do you support the push for partial or full refunds for students at university with the much greater limitations put on their learning and their capacity to use the facilities?
Well, there's absolutely no doubt that young people and very old people have borne the brunt of this pandemic. There's no doubt. And of course, everybody has a lot of sympathy looking at that generation. I mean, I didn't go off to university myself, as I did an apprenticeship and studied 1 day a week. But, go in, the freshers, all the things they've missed. They missed their exams, they missed their end of year things, they missed so much. But of course, universities are independent institutions. It's for them to make those policies. And I know that are looking at this, and some of them have made some decisions on this. It's a difficult time for all people, because the universities at the same time are trying to offer as good an experience as possible. And we know a lot of young university people who've headed off ourselves are in their first and second year, and every single one of them wanted to go, actually, because effectively they want to start that next stage of their life. And it's a difficult decision, but we didn't want to put their lives on hold, even though it is by far not the full experience that previous students have had. And I do hope that it improves very much for these students.
Sorry, Gillian,
as we go into 21.
In answer to my question, do you support refunds for these students who've had limited experiences?
Oh, it's not my place to support it. These are independent businesses. So
what is your opinion?
First of all, I'm not the universities minister, but even if I was, these are independent businesses. So the universities need to look very carefully at their offer and make sure they're doing the best they can in the circumstances to offer a good balance and to offer those opportunities for students at and on campus. Now, as far as I've seen, and this is only personal experience, many of the students are getting a balance. They're getting on-campus opportunities as well as obviously having to do more online, and trying to get that blend right. It's obviously the first term they've all gone back. I'm sure is something the universities are working out. But the alternative is to basically say everybody has to not be able to go back to universities. And we were very reluctant to do that. We already think that young people and their education has been, one of the things that's been badly impacted by the pandemic. And that's why we've prioritised schools, colleges and universities.
And if I may, just
everything.
On that,
it's the most important thing.
Can I just come in on that? Because that's another area of question I just wanted to ask you while we had you. When will England be following the example of Wales and cancelling GCSE and A-levels for next summer? Because research from your department, if I could just finish this, research from your department shows 18 to 20% of schools in England are sending classes home. That's up from 8 to 9% the week before. Almost 2/3 of all secondaries in England sent at least one pupil home last week. And many of these schools are in northern England corona hotspots. How can exams be fair if you've got so many children out of school and their parents, some of them teachers as well?
Well, the problem with this decision actually is it's a very difficult decision, because you need to get a fair system. And as everybody knows, the teacher assessed grades are also not fair. And in fact, there's a lot of evidence that show they impact disadvantaged students more. And actually, I can understand that, having gone to a comprehensive school myself. Not a single person thought I would get any of my exams, and I surprised them all by getting 10 GCSEs. So I would have got downgraded, I'm 100% sure. And that happens a lot in, disadvantaged areas in comprehensive schools, because, first of all, you don't show that you can do anything because it's not the culture. But secondly, it's also, sometimes you pull it out the bag at the end. And so there are no systems which are fairer than exams. Exams
in normal
are the fairest system
in
normal times. But all the other systems have huge flaws. Don't think there's a perfect system. There isn't. There's huge flaws in all the other systems. So what we've said is we want to do exams. Exams will continue. We'll do them later. And also they're looking at the content in exams, because as you rightly say, there will be mislearning for everyone, but for some that will be more acute. So the Ofqual at the moment and the awarding organisations are looking at that situation, and they'll try and get an exam in terms of content. So perhaps it's not as broad as it usually is, not as many questions, a bit more focused in terms of content, to try and, you know, to just to try and make it fairer. But of course it is a challenge, but anyone who thinks that any of the other systems are fairer, they're not right. And, you know, many people are also thinking, what am I going to do if I don't have an exam? How do I prove when others do have an exam? Other people in the world, you're always going to be competing with many other people as you go through your life, and they will have the exams. So it isn't an easy decision, but we've made the difficult decision to continue with exams, make it a little longer for the studies to catch up. Again, that's incredibly difficult, and the teachers are doing an unbelievably brilliant job to try and help everybody catch up. And then, of course, they'll look at making sure the exams are right sized to take account of the disruption that we've had this year.
Gillian Keegan, Education Minister in charge of apprenticeship and skills. Thank you very much for your time. Messages coming in.